So we go again, number 47, the Darkness to Light Godcast with myself, Jim McFadyen from the Vortex Centre for Wellbeing. I hope you're well. And this one, number 47, is going to be called Change of Life. It came about yesterday. It was a good friend of mine, and he asked me how it was getting on, and I actually had the kind of realisation I've had the last wee while that life's actually pretty good this stage that I'm at. And he said to me, the change of life, which, this bit that I'm at this age, 53 now, is very much, that's the truth. I'm definitely going through the change of life. I know it's a big thing for women, menopause, and when the body starts to shift into the next phase. And there's obviously, it's absolutely a thing for males as well. And I've been probably going through it the last probably couple of years without really realising it, without knowing it or having any awareness, about it, just kind of battering on and keeping going. But the definite evidence as to what's been happening within my body over the last week, but particularly probably the last year or so. Maybe last year was masked because of just the mayhem that came about with trying to take this mission to the world. But when I stopped November time and had a bit of kind of time for reflection and having a really kind of good look at myself and seeing where I was at, then there was really kind of obviously clear there was a lot of changes taking place within myself, and every level, physical, absolutely, mentally, emotionally. Just changing the way I was doing things, and the realisation that the way that I used to do it or even had been doing it wasn't really working for me at that point in my life, so that at that stage, then changes had to be made. Conscious change is very, very difficult. It really is, especially when you don't really want to make changes, when you've got into this kind of set pattern of ways of doing things, and it's building a belief system in terms of how it goes together, but I was really kind of forced with that thing that I call the choice, the ability to take control and take responsibility and make it better than it is by the work you're going to do, the intentional work you're going to do. That's the programme. That's what I'm teaching, that's what I'm sharing, the art of intentional living. But when it's you, then sometimes it can be a wee bit trickier. One of my teachers, Jim Rohn, used to say it's a lot easier to teach this stuff than it is to live. And that's certainly been the case for me, for the last probably 8-9 years since the Vortex opened. It's really just been about passing it on and sharing and helping people. The things that I picked up along my own way. And you definitely lose, as well you certainly can, and I certainly did lose my way in amongst all of that. With the desire, the really kind of, the purest of desires to help other people and to help this planet and to help, human beings find relief and find a better, easier, more natural way of living and being. So at the same time as that, with the best of intentions, then it was absolutely detrimental to myself and my own life journey. So come last year, the choices and the evidence, that there were the choices that needed to be made, and then evidence what was happening as to why I had to make them. Then there was a transition phase of really kind of understanding what that was all about, and then come the turn of the year, and I've spoken about it on here enough times. I know I do repeat myself with this stuff. But it's relevant, it's I'm making sense of stuff all the time, and I'm just trying to really express where I'm at and what's coming through me with this constant, expanding mission and journey that I'm on. And it is, you need to go back and see where you were and make sense of where you're at just now. So when I realised yesterday, and he said, the change of life, I was in Glasgow. I met him in Glasgow, and it was fascinating and really, really sad, if I'm honest. Glasgow yesterday. And the most glorious sunshine and watching where people are in this world just now. And change of life for me is something that is absolutely, the evidence of the world is changing. A lot of people can see that, a lot of people can't. A lot of people that I saw yesterday in Glasgow, probably 95% of them had no idea the world was changing. They really didn't. And Glasgow, that's been very much in my consciousness over the last kind of week or so. The whole thing at the weekend, which I do put posts up now and again about it, and I think is it important? I think it is to see where the world is. I think it's important to see where the world is so that you can then do something about it. I am not a truther. I really, the whole truther movement, anybody that's a truther and posting and sharing and trying to convince people as to the evidence of like who controls the world and what's wrong with the world and all that kind of stuff. I get it. I agree with you. You're right. But at the same time, it's like, right, so what good does it actually do when that's where they spend almost all, some of them all their life, but a lot of them most of their life, you know, in that constant conspiracy, victim consciousness, the world's out to get us, there's nothing we can do about it, you know, it really takes away your power. And that's a place I was at many, many years ago when I discovered it all, you know, the horrors of the world and how bad it was. Then it's really, really challenging. And you kind of want at some point everybody to know how bad it is. But you need to realise very, very quickly, you know, what it does to you, which is there's no goodness in it, you know, it basically puts you in a really weakened position. And, you know, again, part of that separation game of, you know, the power that's inside of you and the way that it's meant to be. When you spend all your time, you know, talking about like who's out to get you and what they're doing to keep you down, and you know, and what that does to your body, you know, the chemistry that leaks into your body, you know, being in that constant state of like survival and fear, and you know, the paranoia that can come for that is just insane, you know. And then, you know, the energy and the expectation that you're emitting by watching the world and just wondering what's going to happen next. And you're right, it is going to happen next because you keep putting your attention on it, you know. So the change in the world that needs to take place, I do believe that you need to see where it's at. You need to understand, you know, the opposition. I've been saying for many, many years now, we're in a spiritual war, the war for our hearts and our souls, the war for our veins, you know, and that's really true, obviously, just now, for those who can see that. All the new stuff with AI and, you know, what's been shoved down your throats, you know, through social media, 99.9% of it, and the way that it indoctrinates you and programs you and puts you down a certain route and a certain road. That was very evident in Glasgow yesterday. I was early for the appointment. And a couple of, you know, some of the people that you see now, there was a one kind of an aesthetics, they call it, as an aesthetics salon, and one of the young lasses that was sitting outside it, she must have been in her early 20s, and you're just, for me, maybe it's because I'm old and I don't understand it, and I've never understood it, you know, but how anybody can do that to their face in terms of change the way you look, by pumping yourself, and a lot of it's just absolute poison, the stuff that they put in that's dissolved within the body, you know. So this young lassie, the condition of her face and her lips, and you know, every single bit of her, how swollen and inflamed and literally plastic that she looked, and how anybody can perceive that to be attractive. And anyway, I don't get that. I don't understand that at all. I really don't. I never have for the very beginning. If it first started, whenever it was, like 5-10 years ago, where you started being aware of it. And you know, seeing people yesterday, you know, with their faces and you know this mask, this literal mask that they've got on, you know, it's just fascinating to watch, you know, because I can remember a time. It's different maybe for the young ones coming up that don't know what it means to be in a time that doesn't exist, you know. But I can remember when, you know, obviously that wasn't a thing. I can remember there was no internet. Which was the first probably 20 plus years of my life, you know. Mobile phones didn't come on the same time as probably 24, 25, which makes you sound antiquated now, you know, it does, but I get that. But at the same time, you can remember, you know, life before and after, so you've got a vantage point to make some kind of judgment as to whether it's better or whether it's worse. And the whole thing just now is definitely worse than it's ever been. Glasgow, as I said, it's been in my awareness because of, you know, I would say the kind of, they were forecasting riots at the weekend, and certainly for me, when I saw the announcement right at the beginning of the week that the kind of Celtic celebration of the league, and then the Rangers, the Rangers fans, and obviously the association with Orange Walks and all that kind of stuff was going to be in Glasgow at the same time in the same area, straight away you start to, you know, you realise that that's done by design as far as I can see, you know, and the possibility for carnage when two such groups who, you know, for me, I grew up a Celtic fan. Anybody who knows me, I despise both sides equally now. I really do, for a long, long time, since my early 20s when I really saw through it. Before I had my real kind of waking up and life-changing experience, but before that I saw what that whole thing did. I call that, again, it's a part of the separation game. Celtic versus Rangers, you know, Hun Consciousness versus Tim Lightment. I've got some brilliant poems about it. One of them's in the Darkness to Light book, and I've released poems about it at all, and it's really ignorance to me. And people get offended when you use that word, ignorance, and let me define that, because when you look up ignorance in the Oxford English Dictionary or online, it really means that you don't know. Ignorance means that we don't know. Awareness would be the opposite of that, when you do know. But for people that don't know any different, and just believe that that's the way that it's meant to be, because of, I always remember growing up and realising that if I'd been born into a different family, I'd have went to a different church and a different school and I'd have worn a different strip, and I would have hated, because I did hate at one point when I was really young. I absolutely did. I can remember that, going to Celtic Park where I could walk, and being in Ibrox, and when Rangers scored and the whole place went up, and I remember somebody sitting beside me saying if you had a button and you could bring down the entire stadium, you would do it in a minute. Some Irish bigot sitting beside me. And it's amazing what the programming does to you, the environment and growing up in that, and the hatred that it breeds. And then here you are. That was 35 years ago, probably. That experience where I can really remember feeling, that real, whatever it is that made me like that. The side of the fence that you were born on, and taught to basically hate the other side. For school and obviously Celtic and all that kind of stuff. And the realisation of how, before even this stuff started, the spiritual journey started, the realisation of, depending on where and you've no real choice in that, where you're born into. I don't think, maybe you do in some level, but but the indoctrination and the programming about how that makes you, the environment, how that makes you, and what that makes you become. And I've spoken here often about how some of my pals I used to play football with outside school were Protestants, and it was always fascinating how you hated them on the Saturday or the Sunday, and then by the time it got to the start of the week you were pals again. But for that time you were arch enemies, and so much kind of rested on it, And fast forward now, where I'm at with this journey and everything that I've experienced over this spiritual journey over the last nearly 30 years now, and seeing people that still live their life, going to Celtic Park or Ibrox every week, and how much it means to them, and how much they still their identity, and how much they get out of it, and how much it feeds them, and also all the kind of the horribleness of it, the anger and the bitterness and the resentment and the hate that's definitely there. You can dress it up how you want, but it's based on religion. I know that's changed now because religion's in the bones of its arse, but that's still a large percentage, I would say, of people that go there. It was interesting back in the day because probably most people at the time who I knew went to Celtic Park would be at church one day. They used to say they're under the what was it saying? Under the flag on the Saturday and under the blankets on the Sunday. So they wouldn't go to mass. But a lot of the people I knew that went to mass, they were good Catholics, and some of the vileness and the hatred that would come out. You'd be standing beside them. I was a wee boy and watching some of these people, the vileness that would come out of their mouths towards strangers, and you learn by your environment because you want to survive in that environment. So I picked it up for that I could walk, literally, with a Celtic strip on and, programmed right from the beginning. That's, you choose your side and then you live and die by that. That's kind of what you learn, isn't it? So that separation game and the ignorance that's involved in that and everything that comes from it, it's a real challenge to me. It really is. It's challenged me for so many years and so many different levels. And every year, it was quite interesting. I put a post up about it last week, and I didn't lose any followers, which is the first time ever. Normally, people will see the post about Celtic and Rangers, and they'll straight away they'll make a judgment, and I've had enough of it because I'm calling them out basically as being ignorant and getting so much out of something that's just absolutely nonsensical in this day and age. I support your football team, but when religion comes into it, and the politics comes into it, and way more comes into it. It's like a religious war almost for some of them. How much it feeds them. Then at some point, then it's is it serving you and is it making you better? Especially where mankind and humanity is just now and the world is just now. I see it as a huge part of the problem, and it's something that I wish wasn't there, but it is. And so watching, Glasgow last week, tuning in a couple of times to see it and watching, the mess that the Celtic fans apparently made. And I don't know how much trouble there was. I didn't check in after it, but just the leading up to it and feeling, when is this going to end? When are we going to get beyond this? When does this stop? What do we need to do to get this to stop? Because even that, you think of, Scotland as a people and how we are separated within this country, primarily either Protestant or Catholic. That's the two main religions historically over my lifetime. Certainly, it's maybe different now because of all the different kind of ethnic groups and whatever is in the country just now that makes up the country now, and obviously the slow decline, which has been fairly rapid, if you're honest, over the last few years in terms of religion and people who actually are into religion. But that was certainly, the two groups, Celtic and Rangers was Catholic and Protestant, and the kind of. how that came about in terms of, you know, Scottish people and how we were separated, you know, with England. You know, England basically colonised us, took us over, and did the same with the North of Ireland, did the same with Wales. And we became part of Great Britain, which is really interesting now, how half of Scotland, or whatever the percentages are, you know, believes that that's the right way. Same with Ireland, you know, how you think that the southern part of Ireland stayed as a free state, and how the north part of Ireland basically decided to, for whatever reason, through force or through choice, became part of a United Kingdom again. So you're basically separating communities and, you know, family members, I would imagine, at some points, maybe not as much, but, you know, definitely communities where, you know, you get to choose a side, and you need to, you know, based on God, you know, how these beings that went in, you know, these basically warmonger beings, and a lot of it was dressed in spirituality as well, and dressed in God, you know, and you had to choose your side as to, you know, which way you were going to basically get access to God. And then based on that, you know, then that determines your religion, and then based on that, determined on what side you were on, and based on that, like, who you're supposed to hate and who you're supposed to love, and who you're supposed to, obviously, in terms of the king and the queen and all that kind of stuff, who you're supposed to, you know, bow before. So really, really interesting, you know, how, you know, Scotland, people have like so short memories as to, you know, how, you know, that came about, how we became about as, you know, this country as part of the United Kingdom, and how now we fight against each other in such a short period of time, you know, and really no time at all, how all of that has been forgotten. And, you know, I think back a lot to a time where before organised religion came in, and obviously the ancients must have had some understanding of the divine, is probably limited and as, you know, in terms of consciousness, how low they were at the time, but there would be some. Certainly the ancient civilizations, when you look at, you know, the Aborigines or the Native Americans, or, you know, the indigenous people down in the Amazon or at different parts of the world, certainly obviously in India goes back probably the furthest with the Vedas and all that kind of stuff. There's always been, you know, some acknowledgement and practice or devotional, you know, worship of that which we would call God. Whether it's Mother Nature, whether it's been the sun, or whether there's different gods for different things, there's always been, you know, that notion of divinity. And, you know, back in the day in Scotland, before the kings and the queens and the, you know, the popes and the priests and the whoever it is that came in to basically tell you, you know, which way you had to start, you know, worshipping, and why you had to worship that way, and, you know, and a lot of times it would have cost your life if you didn't, you know, and not that long ago as well, which is fascinating. You know, then it's just amazing how quick human beings can be broken down and reprogrammed and be taught to live and be in a different way, and how quick the memory disappears, and then, you know, you're standing underneath a banner as if your life depended on it, and you're fighting for a cause that really is just something that's manufactured and man-made. That's really, really interesting. And, you know, the world and the way that it is for so many years now, it's everywhere. It's in every continent, and it's the divide and conquer game. You know, the separation game. Whether it's, you know, your political parties, or whether it's your football team, or you know, the flag that you stand under. It's worldwide. You know, where you really need to choose an identity, and, you know, stand underneath that. And it's been fascinating for me over the last wee bit, watching what's coming out of Africa. Again, as I say, I do tune in to see what's happening in the world so we can do something about it, and it's nothing much really changes. Over the last 18 months or so, what's going on in the Middle East has been heartbreaking to anybody that's been privy to that. I saw in a clip this morning that within the next couple of days there's a possibility like 14,000 babies are basically facing death because of, you know, the reluctance to allow supplies and to basically feed them, to keep them alive. The mothers are so depleted because of what's been happening over the last year, 18 months, that they no longer can produce the food that's required for these newborn babies, and the food supplies are being stopped. So another 14,000 on top of, 50,000 people now that have been, you know, basically wiped out. They use the word genocide, and that's becoming more and more accepted as what's happening over there. And, you know, you think in this day and age as to what's going on, and what's happening in the world, you know, and the atrocities of like 14,000 babies like could die in the next couple of days if they don't allow these trucks to get through. And the food's there, you know, it's just that the Israelis won't allow it in, apparently. They won't allow this baby food in to get to where it needs to go to. And then at the same time, you know, the world and how it responds to that and what the world leaders are doing about it, which is actually not that much. And then you hear, you know, from our side being the United Kingdom and British, how that's been, you know, we've been supporting it over the last, they have been supporting it over the last 18 months. America's obviously a huge part in that as well. And then seeing the opposition to that, you know, at different sides of the world, whether it's China, whether it's Russia, and you know, and at the same time, nothing much really changes. And all the while, the worry for me is that when it comes to the point where it escalates so far, where somebody actually stands up and says that enough is enough, and that's something that's absolutely been missing. And no, that's really the thing you want somebody to say, especially somebody at that level, because of how quickly that could escalate. I do believe that these weapons of mass destruction and the bombs and all the kind of military, you know, these weapons that they have, I've always believed that they create them for a reason. You normally find they'll use them at some point, and that's obviously the last thing that we need or ever would want. Catastrophic to think, you know, what would happen, and even the possibility, whereas we don't even know, you know, thinking back to that thing on Saturday with Celtic and Rangers fans, all the Celtic fans on top of the traffic lights, you know, steaming and just wrecking the place. And we in the West don't really understand what hardship is. We really don't. Watching you know, the Celtic manager and the Rangers manager that's just left, watching them when they're on and how serious they are and how like almost angry and, you know, how focused and how it's life and death situation, but it isn't really. It's a game of football they're talking about, and then you put your focus elsewhere in the world where there's a possibility of 14,000 babies, literal babies, losing their life, you know, and what that does to that, you know, those people, and what it does to that country, and what it does to the planet in terms of consciousness when that can be allowed to happen. You know, we really don't know what it means to suffer in this country. We really don't. We have no idea. We're so lost and so ignorant, you know, and so distracted with things like Celtic and Rangers, and things like, you know, whether it's on the television or what's going on in the news or what's happening in the politics, and 99.9% it's just bullshit that doesn't matter, and nothing really changes anyway, you know, but it's all part of that distraction game. You know, so it's been interesting over the last wee bit where a man came into my awareness, who I've watched him a fair bit now, and again, this is the benefit when you're tuning in now and again, and it's like an art form to tune in and not get caught up in it. It's so difficult to watch what's happening over in Israel and Palestine just now, because it breaks your heart. There was a video I saw yesterday, a wee girl, tiny wee girl, standing in the rubble and just watching her. It brought me to tears watching, just seeing the pain. And this wee soul, and the man that was talking to her, she eventually got her to take his hand. And, you know, just another human being reaching out and literally giving love, and just this wee girl's reluctance to, because of who knows what she saw, what she's been through in the last, 18 months, what she's lost in terms of family members, or it's heartbreaking. And, tuning in and seeing that kind of stuff is so difficult not to get caught up in it. And obviously because of this stuff online, you need to be careful. It's a fine line between, what's allowed to be broadcast, what's allowed to be released to the public, and what gets taken down, and how that affects you. And I'm obviously trying to keep this in the light all of the time, so that those who are drawn to it can get the solutions and can get the answers. If you're on there talking about conspiracy stuff, which is actually literally real, most of it, but if you're on there, shouting and bumping your gums about the horrors of the world, then there's a real chance you're going to get taken down. So always trying to keep away from it as much as possible. And the reason and the fact that when you do spend time there, then it blows your chi, it really does. It takes you further and further away from the answers and the solution, which I am all about. That's what this work is all about. But as I said, it's very important to see what's going on. And probably the last 6 weeks or so, there's a man down in Africa. He's an African president of a country I'd never heard of before. Burkina Faso it's called, and his name is Ibrahim Traoré. A young man, must be in his 30s, obviously military trained. And first time I heard him speak, he was basically calling out the world leaders in terms of what in particular France. France basically colonised his country. Countries, I think, it's got 20 million in it. And he was basically calling out, what had happened, not just to his country, but what had happened to Africa as a continent, in terms of, what we, the Western civilizations had done over the years by colonising them, basically going in, replacing their gods with our gods, under, the missionaries and the truth that this man has been speaking in terms of what actually happened. And the challenges that have been faced and the decimation that has been done to, individuals, villages, the entire culture, the entire nations in some instances, by, Western businesses going in and basically raping them, taking all their natural resources, whether it's, for whatever it is, they talk about from the minerals in the ground. There's really specific things that Africa's very rich in, and they have had no benefit from it because of the way that the Westerners have went in and basically taken it over and did away with them and tried to modernise them and get them to be more like us, which is just insane. And watching this man again last week, he had a real go at the Pope. The new Pope was just come in, and he had an open letter to the Pope where he basically called out the Pope and asked him what kind of Pope he was going to be. Whether he was going to be the same as the last ones, or whether he was going to do something different. And then the Pope responded to him within 24 hours. And watching this man talk and listening to him speak, I saw this morning that he made a call to the African Americans, Black Americans as he called them, about how their homelands and the story of, in terms of, basically being sold as slaves and branded, and having all their their language and their cultures and their gods basically beaten out of them, literally, sold off to the slave traders. Many of them are Scottish, which is absolute insanity. I mean, you think, but what happened to as a people, what that did to that entire region. When you imagine your son being stolen, and sold off, and you never seen him again, how that would leave you behind. You can't even think about it. It's again, we in the West have been. It's been so long that we have led this really kind of like unaffected life experience where everything is okay and you don't really deal with any hardship. And you think of something like that and what that's done to that entire nation, that entire continent, how, and then what's left behind, when they're having to rebuild. And at the same time, the missionaries went in, that's where they was having a go at the Pope, what the Pope and what the Catholic Church had done, and called the Pope out. And the Pope was absolutely fantastic, he really was. There's a lot of question marks, obviously, about him just because of the organisation he's in, but the way he responded, in terms of taking responsibility. And this man, this leader, what a human being. A soldier of God is the way that I see him. Someone who's standing up. He stood up to Bezos last week. I saw him having a go at Jeff Bezos and calling him out. I saw yesterday that your man over in Russia, who's your man Putin, President Putin over in Russia. I've always said something about Russia where I think that because of the programming we receive in this country, I've always felt that the Russians they're a lot further ahead than the Westerners would believe. The way that they are just now, and the way that it's, obviously it's sold to us in a different way in terms of the information that we get. But if you ever see any, information about Russia and how the people are, and in terms of how they're still, like, not God-fearing, but God-practicing, religion's a big thing. They don't have, the stuff that's normal now here. Same-sex marriages, they don't have that kind of stuff. The whole LBGT, fucking whatever it is, that doesn't exist over there. Why? Because, it's the way they see it is there's right and there's wrong, and there's black and there's white. There's a way nature intended it, and the way that man has designed it. Excuse me, sorry Murph, jumped out of skin there, a duck. And I've always felt, you talk about, excuse me, I was saying that actually. I've been fighting another virus again. That's another story. The entire family has been down with it over the last week or so. Honey, rough night last night for 2 o'clock this morning. Basically coughing my lungs up. No easy, that's my weak spot. It's always been my chest, I think, from the vaccine damage that I received when I was young. And it's interesting how the last year or so I've been ill a couple of times. and it seems to be this same area. My brother called it COVID 2025, and it feels dirty, it feels virally, and I've got a metally taste in my mouth. I was at the golf on Thursday morning early, probably 5 o'clock, and after having weeks of just clear blue skies, and the question I asked was, like, I wonder why they've stopped spraying the skies, I wonder what's happened with that. And the next morning I got up and the place was just like chalk white, just everywhere, and the lid on my barrel, it's a black metal lid I've got. That's powder coated, so whenever there's stuff in the skies I can see the film that's on the barrel. I wash it every day, the barrel lid, more or less. I went to the golf, and when I came back I could feel it in my system, I could feel it almost instantly, and then that night then it seemed to develop very, very quickly, you know. So I've maybe asked the question too quickly, why have they stopped spraying, or I wonder why they've stopped spraying. Anyway, back to Russia. So the Russia and the way they produce organic food, and the right and wrong, you know, truth versus falsehood, morals. I do believe that I believe I'm a decent judge of character. I can normally tell, you know, truth from falsehood. I can because of Dr. Hawkins and the ability to test stuff. So you get to see and you get to feel like where people are, and you get to obviously see like this side of the coin, the West. We grew up, you know, I can remember the Iron Curtain and the Berlin Wall and all that kind of stuff. I remember when the Berlin Wall came down. I remember I played football in a tournament in France. I went with Heart of Midlothian over Edinburgh. I went to a tournament with them, and we played against the East German national team. And these laddies had nothing, you know, they had the best of gear in terms of Adidas stuff, but apart from that they had nothing. They were all like malnourished, and it was like they were as if they were like prisoners of war. Literally, they had absolutely nothing, you know. It was I remember it was a real shame just watching them. There were some football players, but they were, I don't know whether they were on the drugs at that time, you know, the whole, the programmes they had for improvement, you know, the natural improvement programmes, and the sports skills that they had and all that kind of stuff. Obviously, maybe at the time, going back as far as that, they were way ahead of us. But you know, I remember that. I remember with the Iron Curtain, and you know, I remember my dad going over and watching the football, going to see Celtic behind the Iron Curtain, and basically coming back and like being really humbled by it. You know, in terms of queues for bread and queues for food, and you know, people literally starving with nothing because of the communist regime. So that coming down, and then you know what happened when Putin came in, and where Russia is just now, and you see the videos, you can see Russia looks as if it's doing okay, you know, and that war that's been created with Ukraine as well. That's again, remember that Ukraine was part of Russia at one point, and you know how, you know, they're like brothers, that have been separated with flags and boundaries, and it's just fascinating to watch it. But point of the story, I saw that basically Putin, who now and again will stand up and whatever he believes in, he'll stand beside it, and he's basically said that if this dude gets touched, your man Ibrahim Traore, if he ever gets touched, then you know people are going to follow the back of it. So he's sent in his elite military to protect him, and I can just feel what it's doing to the West just now. And the call to arms for black Americans to return home, offering them visas, you know, offering them to go back and get back to their roots. And you think of a people that have been displaced, you know, over how many generations, you know, where a lot of them never really fitted in. You know, all the slavery and, you know, the troubles that have came with that, the challenges that they face living in America as a black, it's probably mostly a black male, obviously what you see on the television and the stuff that you pick up. It's so challenging and inhumane, the way that you know, I try to say, like the people, those people, that generation of human beings, how they've been treated because of the colour of their skin, that basically happened through no choice of their own, you know. And then when they get to this, you know, in America, and you fast forward all these years, and then it's still going on, you know. So when somebody says, "Why don't you come home? Everyone's going to be fine. You can help us rebuild, you know, this new Africa." I can feel what it's doing to the Western world, and it's fantastic because this great reset that's on just now, I believe it's a spiritual reset. I know they talk about the Great Reset in 2030 and the old monetary fund and all your man Schwab and all they kind of lunatics, you know, Bill Gates and the World Economic Forum. What they're going to do is, you know, you'll never have anything and you'll be happy, and you know, 20-minute cities. That's the plan that's going on just now. AI chipping people, you know, so you're going to lose your humanness, you know, so you'll lose your consciousness. You'll be a hybrid. of a new type of human being that does not have, consciousness the way that, that it should be in terms of the natural way that God gave us. So the shift that's taken place and the path that we are on, we're still on it, but it's going to take a massive change. And when I saw that man, started watching him, and every single time that I hear him talk, and every single time, the information that's coming through in terms of what he's doing and what he's standing for, and the truth that he's speaking, which is the most important part, it's undeniable. You can't listen to him. You can't not listen to him and know that the man's speaking the truth. But also the answers and the solutions that he's offering. I shared a post this morning that he put up in terms of the religion within Africa. How Christians and Muslims have been taught to fight against each other, and basically a call to arms, a spiritual arms to basically stand side by side. And he made the same point as I just made about how before the missionaries came in and those who colonised Africa, they had very different gods and very different belief systems and very different ways of learning stuff that was basically beaten out of them and taken away from them, and given the way that it was meant to be, with the intention and sold, the program or the dream of this is better for you, and if you don't do it, then you won't be here. So to think that that's going to get back to the way that it's meant to be, that's really exciting. The world needs to get back to the way that it's meant to be. It needs to get back to the natural path. And when you get somebody like him speaking up and then world leaders standing beside him, that to me is very, very interesting, and it gives me hope. It really does, because everything that he's saying is in complete alignment with everything I've been talking about. I'm all about the reconnection. I'm all about the solutions. I'm all about seeing the darkness versus the light in this world, the challenges that we face. What I saw in Glasgow yesterday with a lot of the young lasses and the stuff they're putting into their bodies to be attractive or to be pretty. It's just soulless. It's wrong. It's madness to me. And long term, it'd be interesting to see. By the time they get to their 40s and their 50s, after years of pumping that shit into their system, what the long-term negative health effects are going to be. That's before you even get to diet and all the other stuff, all the poisons that we put in. But even just that, the toxicity getting pumped into your face, and different parts of your body as well, I do believe. There's pills for, changing the melatonin in your skin, so you don't need to use sunbeds, or so you get a better effect or a bigger dunt off the lights for the sunbeds. And I'm going, it's just the world's madness. That doesn't make sense to me. This change of life, this stage that I'm at now, becoming one of the elders, it makes no sense to me. It's absolute, it's madness to watch it, and that's the fight, that's the transition that's on just now. And there's definitely a choice. There's different ways that we can go, and there may be two different choices. And it's going to be interesting to watch and witness how the world, over the course of the rest of my life, where we end up. On one hand, it's terrifying, to think, even when the electric car stuff comes through, and straight away I'm thinking, well, without, those electric cars, so you can only go so far in them, so you're immediately kind of trapped. Then you add into that all the smart technology in terms of what you're going to be allowed to do with them. And then the satellites that your man Musk is pumping into the sky every 20 minutes. A good friend of mine was up at one of the islands for a wee week's holiday a couple of weeks ago, and the locals are all really happy because the satellites, I think there's going to be 5 or 6 satellites a year. I think it's used one of the islands. They're going to be putting these satellites up into the sky, and they're delighted because of the work that it's creating and the employment and the economy. And again, it's like somewhere as beautiful as that up in the Scottish Islands, how it's having to rely on somebody like Elon Musk, to put his satellites up into the sky. And you think what these satellites are going to do, and how much that's going to restrict, in the worst case scenario, your movement and what you're going to be able to do because of, what it tells you by picking up whether the chip's in your phone or it's inside your brain or it's inside your arm or wherever they put it. It's terrifying, to think that that's one possibility. And at the same time, there's enough people looking at the evidence in the world and seeing the challenge that we face in this world, and realising, and this is powerful people like that man I spoke about, that captain, when he's talking about it, in terms of the way that it's meant to be, and the world is listening. At that point, it gives you so much hope in your heart. It really does, that there may well be a different way of doing things, because this, the way it's been ushered in and the way it's been programmed in, and the amount of young ones that are just buying into it, because they're separated, because they're sick, because they're ill, with the food and the environment and the stress, and since COVID in particular, whether it's the vaccines or the virus itself, and what that did to the world. It's a new place we stand in, and there needs to be a different way of doing it. There needs to be solutions, and that's what this is all about. It's the solutions. It's going back to the way and the natural path of how it's meant to be. That's what the vortex is, and that's where my tune has never changed, my story has never changed, my intentions have never changed. I believe, in fact I know, there is one way of doing it. And what I mean by that is it's in alignment with the divine and Mother Nature and this planet and how it's meant to be. When you start to look at AI and putting computer chips into your body and start to interface with hard drives and supercomputers, and that starts to do your natural processes for you, then you're handing over a bit of your humanness, and the minute you hand that over, then you're completely tainted. It's not like you get to retain both. You're one or the other. And that's where, if you look at Greg Braden's his topic of conversation just now, about what we're in the precipice of giving up, and how we're basically stepping away from this, what it means to be a human being, and then the realization of the ignorance that we are in just now as a species, because we have no idea the power that's inside of us. The power of the divine, the power of your consciousness, the power of the brain, and the ability to, what you can actually do with that is so under-tapped, and it's so, underused, because we don't know how it goes together. Because we spend so much time looking in the wrong direction, looking to the external for things to make us better and make us healthy. It's like this bug I've got just now. In the past, when I was young, I would be 5 days into antibiotics just now. I grew up on antibiotics. They were like Tic Tacs for me. I had antibiotics 2, 3, 4 times a year sometimes. Chest infections, viruses, and since 2016 really, when I discovered cold exposure and how to breathe with function and breathe properly, and how I could influence my own immune system. All the pills went long before that, in terms of even anti-inflammatory pills or painkillers or that kind of stuff. But like antibiotics, it's like no chance. I'm not interested with the damage that it does to you, what it does to your gut and your biome, and your body's designed to fight it off. And it's interesting for me. I go into meditation, and every single one of the ailments I'm experiencing, the negative conditions that I'm feeling, they disappear inside about 5 minutes when I sit in meditation and I put my focus on the light of the divine, and I bring that awareness into my heart. All of a sudden, the cough and the tightness in the chest and the phlegm, it completely disappears, and I become normal for the period I'm in meditation. Then sometimes for a couple of hours after it, I'm completely normal. And then maybe you remember, or you get back to the aches, the creaks and the groans and the moans, and you start to feel a wee bit lethargic again. And it's the body's designed to fight against these things, as it's designed to fight off bacteria and viruses. But when you're looking external for something to make it better for you, it's just another way of giving away your power. So the natural path, the solution's the way. Change of life is changing on this planet just now. It is in so many different ways. It's really exciting. I'm actually excited by it in some kind of strange way, because I've always known that it's going to happen. And I've felt recently over the last couple of years, because of many things, in particular the prophecies that came through from the man I spoke about on here many times, Babaji, one of the masters of the Saj Marg system. He talks about this year, the end of this year into 2026 has been a really significant time, and a great reset taking place, a really significant event taking place that's going to affect the world and the mass consciousness of the world. And for me, that's the way that it's unfortunately the only way it's going to happen, is by the massive wake-up call and the massive loss and the realisation of the way they've been doing it isn't working. That's the only way that human beings seem to be able to make change. Otherwise, we just keep doing the same stuff, even if it's detrimental to your health or detrimental to the planet or detrimental to each other. The ego is so slippery, and it's so powerful in so many ways. You add into that things like addiction and greed and lust and the 7 deadly sins and the desire to become something that's again has been programmed into you, then it's no easy. And it's almost, not almost, it's literally going to take some sort of mass event that affects almost, whether it's so many people that there's a huge consciousness shift and a huge consciousness change, or whether it affects everybody, and we need to realise as a people, that something needs to change, and we the people are the ones that are going to have to do something about it. But at this point, you must know that the owners of the world, and I'm not talking about the politicians, the puppets that sit in office, but the ones that control them, the top 1% of the 1%, the ones that hold all the strings, and even the ones above them, the ones that are running the world, then they are definitely getting stronger and more powerful, and we as a people, the rest of us, the plebs, the peasants, we are definitely getting, we're getting the rough end of the stick, And it's going to be interesting to see when that shifts and that changes and what it is it takes that to change, because the sneakery that's involved in that, even like the banking system, when I listened to that man Traore talking about, how the banks and the contracts and how it's done, and the intention with it, the presented intention with it in terms of it's to help you, but the real way that it goes together is it's basically raping and pillaging you, and it signs you up for stuff you'll never repay ever. You can never, so you're basically in bondage for the rest of your days. The whole banking system needs to go. You think what they're all about, in terms of keeping you in bondage and keeping you down, and how much, what that does to you, the suppression and the stress and the literal, the anxiety and just the pain and suffering that can cause just by being in debt. I know that my whole life I've been in debt, and money means nothing to me. It hasn't been since Ibiza. I come back from Ibiza with no desire for any money. That was gone. That was beaten at me by the Spanish military police. It's been since then, whatever version of Jim come back, money has never interested me or motivated me, and it's a real challenge because you need it. It really is. It's very interesting, and you see what that system does and how it's designed, to keep you down and to keep you in bondage. Then obviously that needs to go as well, and this is where it becomes tricky, because the entire system and all of that, we are so reliant on it and dependent on it, especially in the Western world. So like, what do they do? What is the transition period of that? Is it just a case of like it caves in and it stops one day, and then maybe that's with this electronic currency? I don't know. That's going to be interesting to watch as well. So this phase for me, I'm going to be talking a lot about reconnection. This is the reconnection. The vortex is moving towards reconnection. That's what it's always been about: reconnection with yourself, reconnection with each other, reconnection with the planet, and absolute reconnection with the divine. In this phase for me, the next wee bit, so much good stuff coming up, and it's going to be focusing on reconnection, reconnecting people back to themselves, back into their hearts and back into their souls. That's where the miracles take place. That's where the magic happens. I saw it this week with my wee daughter. God bless her soul, man. Sat her driving test the other day and passed with flying colours. A perfect, she nailed it. Minors is a thing that I didn't really know about, where you get different. You're allowed 13 minors apparently before they'll fail you. So whether it's not checking your mirrors, or I think it's possibly quite difficult to fail now without taking anything away from anybody that's passed it, obviously. But she come back and she gets 0 minors, and that's apparently unheard of, because they always pick up on something. And just watching her leading up to it and how the stress was affecting her, and she can drive. She's conscientious, she's aware, she can just do stuff. She's always been like that. She's wonderful. She's just one of my heroes. She's just such a good, pure human being. She's just only goodness. But watching the negative effects of stress the night before the event, how this bug, she came in for work the night before and she basically more or less blaming me for getting her bug. And I had to be near her. I'd been keeping out the road there and trying to help, but it was just and it was her nervous system, just the stress that she was under and the pressure she was putting on herself, with the need to basically pass that test the next day. So my wife took her out for a drive, and she was all over the place for the first time ever, really. She just was like, oh no, what's happening? And I knew my role within that, the way I've been helping her, as well as taking her to drive, the way I've been coaching her. Driving tests are easy. The same as any test is easy. You're there to try your best. That's really it. And the amount of life experience that I've had by showing up at the start line, whether it's football matches, whether it's full distance Ironman, whether it's when I sat my black belt at karate, every single time when I turned up for an event, I was literally sick. I was worried sick. I've been up the whole night, in some cases the night before. First ever Ironman I did, I was the whole night up with worry. I was training 30 hours a week at the time. A half Iron event is about 5.5, 6.5 hours, something like that. And so I was doing that every weekend. Some Saturdays I'd be training for 4 or 5 hours, so that should have been a training session for me. But there was just something about the event and the stress, and nobody let switch my nervous system off. So based on my experience and all the different stuff that I've been through, you're there to do your best and try your best and enjoy the experience. In my role with her the night before it was beautiful, the connection that we made, and basically switched off her nervous system with some gentle breathing, 2 or 3 breaths, guided language, took her back on the inside, reconnected her back to herself, reconnected her back to her heart and feeling good, and that divine presence is inside her. It's more relevant to her than almost any human being that I know. and just helping her remember that reconnection process, to remember the goodness that she was and how this was really insignificant, and how she was going to get the opportunity to go and basically, you know, show this guy that she could drive and enjoy the experience and learn from it and expand. As I always say, it's not what you get, it's what you become, you know, and what she became, you know, by going through that whole experience, and now she can drive, she passed with flying colours. But watching the reconnection process and how she had complete peace of mind, and I knew for the minute we finished, it lasted about half an hour on the night before it, and I knew the minute we finished, it was done. I knew she had it in the bag, because she knew it was in the bag, because she remembered all the good stuff. The focus was back on all the good stuff and all, like, as opposed to, you know, the doubt and the fear and what if and all that kind of stuff. And that becomes a choice when you understand this game, you know. So really grateful to be able to help her through it. Really grateful what she's became. With a wee celebration last night, went for a pizza in the town last night, which was great. You know, just celebrating her because of the awesomeness that she is, and looking forward to getting her on the road now. You know, so again, the way. The solutions, the answers, the reconnection process, remembering the power that's inside of you, that place that Abraham Hicks would call alignment. Being in alignment is everything. You know, taking her back into alignment very, very quickly, remembering who she is, remembering the power that's inside her, remember the stuff that's important. You can do anything in that state. That's called union. That's called coherence. That's unity. Once you get that in yourself, if we can then, and this is the intention with the programme, is to give it to others. The community in the programme just now, there's not enough people in terms of how we get it to the world, but there's enough people doing about it to see that it works, because when that community comes together, when we sit in meditation together, when we're on the online meditations twice a day, every single day. I missed it this morning. 2 o'clock I was up this morning, coughing my lungs out, and had a couple of hours meditation. The meditation normally starts between 4:30 and 5:30, so I missed it this morning. I was lying with the music on, basically just healing myself and breathing and letting it go. But I could feel the power in the group. I turned it on, the computer on, I think it was 10 people on at one point, sitting in union, in union with the divine, in union with ourselves, in union with each other in this sacred space. The benefits to the world that that's creating, I have like, I know what it's doing. I can feel the power that's in it. I can feel the goodness that's in it. Hawkins talks about, I do that as if he's behind me, but his books are behind me. Hawkins talks about the counterbalance of like people who have higher levels of consciousness, and how that counterbalances all the low level, you know, the anger and the hatred and the bitterness and those that are out to get the world just now. That's why the focus needs to be in the light, and that's why, you know, having the awareness to see like where you're spending your time. I recently just stopped following Anthony Williams, a medical medium, because the stuff that he's talking about just now, the demons and the angels and, you know, those that are trying to trip you up, it's like, it doesn't make me feel good, you know. And when he's talking about the benefits of what his diet does and spirit of compassion and all the answers and all the solutions, I love him, I really do, a lot, and I still love him, you know. But this last wee bit, the angels and the demons stuff, and focusing the light on the dark side of the force, when you understand how things work, when you're putting your focus on that, then it makes it bigger, and you bring a different light, and that light and that intention to the dark side of the force. That's why they want you to be spending your time watching the truther stuff and worrying about how bad the world is and who's out to get you, because it makes it bigger. You know, consciousness will literally manifest it for you. You know, so the power of awareness, you know, the solutions, the reconnection process back to yourself. This next phase is going to be great. I'm in a great bit just now. I feel pretty shit just now physically, but that is by the by. Spiritually, I feel incredible as a spiritual being and a human being, but as a spiritual being just now, I'm in a great place. We are this weekend. We're away, so there's going to be, the vortex is going to be closed from this Friday. Anybody that's trying to contact me, you're not going to be able to get me for about a week. Vortex is closed. We are 25 years married. The following week, which is the 2nd of June, so myself, my wife, my girl, we're going to be away for a wee week together. Phones are going to be off, spending some time together, catching up, recharging the batteries properly for the next wave that's going to be coming, because when I come back, then it's all systems go. The programme's coming out. I've just taken on the next 3 months. The last Friday in the month is going to be in Glasgow. I mentioned that in the last podcast, in the Yoga Barn. Delighted and honoured and really blessed for Maureen and the team in there for allowing me to take that space on a Friday night. That's going to be really exciting. That's going to be called Reconnection. That's going to be based on reconnection. I'm going to be taking people through the breath work, my own take, my individual unique take on the breath work and the reconnection process, and how I guide people back into their hearts and back into their souls, back into their self, teaching them meditation, what meditation's all about, get them to experience what it feels like to quiet the mind, experience complete peace of mind, to be in your heart, coherence of your heart, and then feeling that in every single cell in your body, and then sitting in that sacred space. It's a wonderful space, a yoga barn, it really is. It's a great bit. I can't wait to get in there. I've been in there with Sasha loads of times, doing qigong, and went to a retreat in there this month, a few weeks ago, and it's sitting in meditation with myself and John and Mark during the class, and I thought, no, this would be great, and we all had the same realisation when we came out, we need to get in here, so there we go, we're in. It starts the last Friday, I think it's the 27th, the last Friday in the month, and then it's June, July and August. We've taken on the first 3 months, basically to see how it goes. Excited, I think it's going to be limited to 20 places, but excited for that. The entire Friday even going to get the fire lit and get people on about the community and the programme, and they've got a chance to speak to me or the team and see what it is we're doing. The programme's going to be getting launched at the start of the month, Back to the World. That's £1 a day to come and get on about this inspiration, the information, the group, the community, the stuff I've been working on for the last 28 years. And there's 2 bits to that, there's 2 very distinct bits. Wee second, I'm going to take a wee sip of this again. We'll go for the car, we'll have some honey as well, why the hell not, party time. Where was I? I was talking about the yoga barn and the community and what's going on within, the good stuff that's coming through, the community is coming through. It's in 2 very, very distinct parts now. The first bit is for anybody coming in. The whole thing's for anybody, but it's in 2 different phases. It's almost like no matter what you're coming in with, whether you're an advanced yogi, or you've been practicing Zen your whole life, or you've got nothing, you're basically walking in off the street and you like the sound of it, and you like to learn how to quiet your mind, or you like to learn cold exposure, you like to learn how to sleep better, or deal with anxiety or depression, the kind of basic stuff. And the programme is there it's basically, the programme is the art of intentional living, so it's how you take back control and how you take back your power, how you reconnect and remember the power that's inside of you, and how you start to live from that place. That's what the programme is, that's what the programme is going to teach you. And the videos, hundreds of videos, hundreds of hours of videos, recordings, the guided breathwork, the guided relaxation, how to get to sleep, how to wake up, how to the process, the best day ever starts the night before. Hundreds of meditations, all different types of meditations. There's a whole bank there. I've been recording for the last year about meditations, from 20 minutes up to some of them will probably be 2 hours. So there's a bank of meditations. Then there's also the live meditations, which is every single day, twice a day now, between 4:30 and 5:30 in the morning, which I host almost every single morning. And then there's the 9 o'clock prayer as well, which is something that came through Saj Marg. And the 9 o'clock prayer is fantastic. That's really you seeing, the light of the divine and spirituality, and your brothers and your sisters rising and lifting this world up with their work. That's what the 9 o'clock prayer is. So I missed it last night. I didn't get to 9:30 last night, but there's always people in that sacred space, that Zoom space that I've called the sacred space. So that's its own wee vortex now, that you can go in there like any time of the day, 7 days a week, any day of the year. You can go in and sit in that space, there's a vibration obviously being created in it, and that's a literal fact. That's no rainbows and unicorns. There's a space within that. There's a vibration within that space. That is sacred. It's literally sacred, and it's a vortex. That's the best way to describe it. It's a literal vortex where you can go in. Yesterday I saw one of the ladies, who's a roofer, 3:30, so he's just finished going in, just finishing his day, and he's straight into the meditation. He'll be sitting in there himself, either listening to a recording or sitting in silence or playing some music, and just letting the day go and reconnecting back into his heart and back into his soul, and remembering the power that's inside of him, so he can take it into the rest of his day. And I see that, I get the notifications when people sign up, but they go into it, most of them, and I can't tell you what's the power that's in that. That's the 2 bits to it. There's the whole community of the intentional living and taking back control and really like mastering the lower self, I would say. And that leads into, eventually, very quickly, depending on how fast you want to go through it, how about your fast track system towards that goal of enlightenment. That's what this is all about. It's about becoming enlightened. The direct experience of the divinity that's inside you. It's inside all of us. That's the real reconnection. That's what the plan is. I'm not hiding that anymore. It's not like a side dish where you're going to get it, maybe, depending on whether I talk about it or whether you ask for it. that's what we're doing with this. It's a reconnection back to the divine that fortunately we carry inside of us. And before they start putting chips and all that kind of stuff and doing away with it, the hour is late, obviously. So the time is now to bring this to the world. And I'm a spiritual teacher. That's what I do. I help people reconnect back to the divine, not in a religious way, but in a matter of fact, direct, experience-based way where they'll experience it for themselves. That kingdom of the divine that's inside every single one of us. That happens in meditation. And that's my strong suit. Spirituality is what I'm all about. Everything else that I do is like foreplay. All the other stuff to manage your nervous system and feel good and deal with the world and how it comes at you, that's just a starter for 10. But the internal journey, the reconnection back to your soul and back into spirit and becoming inspired and being in alignment and being in that flow state, and that's how we fix the world. So that's where it's all going. Which is really exciting, and really finding new ways to bring it to the world and help as many people as I can. That's what it's always been for me. Once you get it for yourself, you need to pay it forward. And that's what I've been doing for the longest time now. But I feel as if I'm in a different place now. I feel much more mature. I think I've learned a lot since the Vortex opened. I really had it before the Vortex opened. Get it for yourself, master yourself, and then pay it forward. But since the Vortex opened, it's been giving it away, and I've been probably forceful with that in times with the best intentions to help people, but that doesn't work either, and especially where the world is just now. So now I believe I've found a nice way of presenting it and giving people that experience very, very quickly. It's dead quick. You don't need to sit in an ice bath. You don't need to go through 45 minutes of breathing. And it can happen in the first session. In fact, my intention is to absolutely make it happen in the first session. I present the possibilities that if you're open-minded and you're ready and you want to come in and open heart, open mind, always say, and expect the best. If you're in that place and you allow me to take you through breath work and relaxation and then into a meditation, I would bet the house that you're going to get it. I really would. You'll get something, but there's a chance you might get it. And if you get it, then the whole world changes. Everything changes. And the more people we get back into the light, the more people we can get reconnected back to themselves, back to the source, back to the divine, then the better the chance we've got of stopping this literal runaway train, this insanity that's in the world just now. That's the plan. That's what I'm doing here. It's been a great period. It's been an exciting period. The down period of the programme being away has been a gift from God. It's been fantastic. It's allowed me the space to really get my own shit together in terms of what I'm doing. I'm loving the writing again. I'm not getting enough time to do it just now, but I'm loving writing the programme. I'm over 35,000 words, just about, I think 34,500 words. Into that, there's probably another 60,000, 70,000 words to come for the programme. And then there'll be a document for that. The books just needing a final edit. I know I keep saying that, but that's the plan. The two of them will go at the same time. And at that point, we've got something really tangible. The online stuff, the programme, the videos, the recordings, the community, the workshops in person, the satsang, once a month on a Sunday, boys club, girls club, the club, there's something on weekly, and then the ceremony retreats, which I haven't spoke about yet, but that's something that's back on the cards again. There's hundreds of people interested in coming and doing a ceremony retreat with me. And you need to be in the programme, you need to be part of the community to do that. That's the only way I'm going to allow that to happen for so many different reasons. For your benefit, for my benefit, for everybody's benefit. But the one of the locations I've been using, as if by magic and divine timing, has just appeared again, and it says, look, this is where we're at, how you fixed, and I'm going, aye. So there's going to be a summer retreat, there will be an autumn retreat, and there will be a winter retreat as well in Scotland. And where we're going this week, myself and my wife, I've got a real knowing about this area we're going to. It's already, I know it's a sacred space. It's really dear to my wife's heart. I've got a feeling it's already dear to my heart, and I've got a feeling we might end up there at some point, having some sort of presence there, which would be a lot warmer, even though it's looking at the window, it's beautiful just now, but it's going to be somewhere where we can hopefully have a base that we can, take people abroad and get a break for, this when the rains come back. So really excited for that. The ceremony retreats are just awesome. They really are. It's 4 or 5 days normally. I'll probably extend them to a week once we go abroad. But here at this time, it's Friday afternoon to Monday afternoon. And I just wish you could experience what people are getting. I wish everybody could experience that. And they're not for everybody. They're very intense. It's a massive shortcut towards spiritual advancement. It's a massive shortcut towards a huge shift in consciousness very, very quickly. There's a massive preparation goes into it. It's so serious in terms of diet, in terms of meditations, in terms of where you're at, what you're coming in with, what you're trying to shift, the healing that needs to take place. What needs to be, the resistance that needs to be removed, for that to take that. So that's where my training and all the stuff that I've done over the years comes into that, the spiritual training I've done in myself, and how like so many I've helped now with the ceremony stuff. Just it's really excited for that. That's a great weekend. The what happens within that group, and the sitting here last week and the connections that are made, that people go through something like that together. You're talking about a lifelong bond and literally becoming brothers and sisters. And that's really special. That's the one thing that I love about the Vortex just now, is the people that are on about it. And a few people have left, and we're down to a kind of nucleus just now. There's enough in it. I would like there to be a lot more in it. But the people that are on about it, it's like, I can't imagine them not being in my life now, and I can't imagine them not having each other in their lives because of what they're getting from each other on this intentional journey towards the light that we're all in together. It's just wonderful, so excited to offer that to more people and get more people on about it. And it's not for everybody. Some people will watch this and think I'm off my nut, and I'm from their limited perspective in terms of what reality is, from Celtic and Rangers level of consciousness, and the news and all that kind of stuff. I get it. I might be perceived as off my nut, but I was there as well. I was in their shoes at one point, so there's no judgment, and I've been on this path from darkness of that, the lower levels of like ego consciousness, all the way up through the scale, to experiencing the divine that's inside me. And at that point, I want to share it with people and let them experience what I got, because if I can get it, anybody can get it. And the fact and the way that I know how to do that and how quick that can happen, with just a wee bit of devotional work, a wee bit of awareness and intention, and getting up out of your bed every day and doing a wee bit of work, we can change the world, so it's exciting times. It really is. It's a great time to be around about the Vortex. It's a great time to get on it if you're interested in it in terms of the programme, and get beyond this natural path back to the way that it's meant to be. Everything gets better. That's it. There's not a single thing in your life that doesn't get better by taking control and taking full responsibility, and it should be easy. Every single thing that I teach, if it's hard, you're not going to do it. I hate motivation. It's no, when people come to me for coaching, I only see people once. It's almost like the Vortex Challenge, like come for one session and watch what happens to your life, because when you leave, you'll have an entire skill set. And then if you go into the programme, at that point there, you've got the community and all the information to then go as like a guide, so you can go and get it for yourself. All these tools and techniques enable you to feel good and to be happy and to sleep well and to be optimistic. Why? So you can go and then lead your own life. The stuff that you're here to do, it's not my programme and you need to do it my way. That's not what this is. It's getting it so you can be in that place of well-being and feeling good, and being in that space Abraham calls alignment, being in that flow state of inspiration. When you're in that place, at that point, you need to go and live your own life. You're here to basically march to your own drum and fulfill your own potential, and nobody can give you that. And it's not in your head, it's basically placed in your heart. So that's why the spiritual side, the meditation side, the reconnection back to the self every single day, so you can follow that vibrational path, as Abraham would call it. It's only goodness. Everything gets better, So exciting times ahead, and I'm going to be checking out now. This will be me until the week after, so probably back 1st, 2nd of June, back into it. Vortex will be open again. Our anniversary is the 2nd of June, so probably after that, probably the 3rd of June. The team's still there for taking anybody that's interested in any of the information. They can basically hit us up at any time, and we'll respond to you best we can. In the meantime, do your best, shine your love, rise and shine every single day. Just keep moving forward. The expansion process, it's meant to be about expanding and becoming and learning and getting it for yourself, being happy, being joyful, enjoying this life experience. That's the plan. So do your best, and I hope to see you soon. God bless. Take it easy. Peace out, and bye for now.